eyes. Her baby won't be coming home tonight. Silence screaming out reality. Just another story of the evening news. Politics and prejudice. How they ever come to this. When everybody's gonna pick a side. It don't matter if you're wrong or right. Let go. I believe you and me are sisters and brothers in love. I believe we're meant to be here for each other, and we walk hand in hand. The world has been broken together again. I believe in the end, love wins. Sometimes it takes a lot of faith to keep believing there will come a day. Tears and the sadness, the pain and the pain, the struggle and the sadness will all fade away together. I believe you and me are sisters and brothers in love. I believe we're to be here for each other, and we never fall if we walk hand in hand. The world has been broken together again. I believe in the end, love reigns. Love is power, love is a smile, love reaches out, love is the remedy, love is the answer, love's the open door, love is the only thing worth fighting for. I believe you and me are sisters and brothers in love. I believe we're meant to be here for each other, and we never fall if we walk hand in hand. The world has been broken together again. I believe in the end, love wins.
Good evening, I'm Neil Friedman, I'm board president of the Taos Jewish Center. And on behalf of B'nai Shalom Havarah, the Taos Jewish Center, and the St. James Episcopal Church, I'd like to welcome all of you to our 17th annual Peace Chanukah Celebration. I think to keep this meeting, to keep these discussions going 17 years is really an honor and really something very few communities have been able to do. I'd really like to thank Betty Meyerson, whose tireless efforts in organizing this every year pay off every year in our discussions. And I'd like to thank Father Mike and his congregation for their hospitality and the energy that they put into setting up for us and organizing and making sure this is a secure facility and that we're all safe and happy and talk and discuss among ourselves. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Shalom, my friends. Welcome to St. James. We are honored and humbled by your presence. Tonight, we come together in spite of our differences as neighbors and friends to look forward to a time when light banishes all of the darkness in our world. We come together not in our differences, but in our common humanity, expressing hope at a time when peace prevails not by might, not by power, but by Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. And just on a personal note, this is my 6th Peace Chanukah, and it will be my last as the host as I retire in a very few months. But it's been my honor to serve with Betty and Neil and all of the partnership that we built with the Taos New Center. Just fills my heart. So thank you. Now, on to the important stuff. Fire exits right there in front of you. Right there behind you. And if you need the facilities, they're out the door to the left across where the food is and just down that little hall.
And if nobody has said it, please turn off your cell phones. Thank you, all of you, for coming. It's so wonderful to have all of you here with us tonight. And thank you for bringing food and donations for our hungry neighbors. From all 3 of the food items are here, I understand. Sherry Lyon, who is the new director of the Shared Table, said she was coming. There she is. Welcome. Ethan from the men's shelter is supposed to be here. I don't know Ethan either. Welcome, Ethan. And Kelly, who is going to be the new director of there she is, of the St. James Food Pantry, is also here. If you didn't bring food and you want to contribute, you can write a check to either one of the programs. The money will be split among the 3, or you can give me cash. I'll be happy to take it from you. Thank you. It'll go to the right place. I want to thank St. James and Father Mike especially. I particularly am very sad that he's retiring, and I'm sure we'll get somebody good, but we'll never get anybody this good. But that's life. I want to thank Richard Wallach for filming for us. I want to thank Wally and Chuck, who are out there organizing the food. I want to thank all the singers whose names are too numerous to mention, and all the speakers and the people who helped set up this afternoon. As we have said, this is about candles lighting the darkness in the darkest time of the year. And as we have said, this is the 17th time we have done this. It was held in Chicago and New York and other cities on the East Coast in 2001, following the World Center attacks on September 11th of that year. Carmen, please stand up. Carmen Cloud was one of the founders of the Taos Jewish Center in 2002. And he came and told us about this thing that had happened called Chanukah the previous year. And he and Bonnie Corman, who wasn't able to be with us tonight, did the first Peace Chanukah at the Taos Jewish Center in 2002. And we have been doing it every year since. We don't know of anyone else anywhere in the country that it is continuing to do it. But I do have some good news. Rabbi Habakkuk, who was the rabbi here a number of years ago, has started a Peace Chanukah, and they're having one in Las Vegas, New Mexico this Sunday. Is there anybody here who's never been to one of our Peace Chanukahs before? Wow, terrific, welcome. That's great, that's great.
Betty reminded me that this started all after the World Trade Center. And I'd like just to take a moment of silence for us to remember what happened in Pittsburgh 2 months ago, when 11 congregates were slaughtered. As Jews, we like to take the mythology of Hanukkah and turn it into a joyous occasion and summarize it by saying that Seleucid Greeks came in, they conquered, we organized a rebellion, we kicked them out, and the whites stayed on in the temple for 7 nights. In truth, it's a bit more complicated than that. And I always like to think of events like Hanukkah in terms of inter- and intra-tribal conflicts. And I try and think, how can we relate those lessons to what's going on in the world today? Alexander the Great is really responsible for Hanukkah. As you may remember in high school or junior high, he conquered most of the known world, and his conquering the world ended about 200 BCE when he died of some infectious disease. His empire was then divided into, and the Greek Seleucids got Syria, and they got what was then Judea. And they were actually fairly benign rulers. They came down to Judea, as Israel was known in those days, time was known. And they made their presence known. They started to build gymnasiums, they started to build their own schools. And they started to welcome the local Jewish natives who would come in and join them in their aerobics, in their Pilates, in their stretching. And they welcomed them into their temples. And gradually, over a few years, they started to bring some of the Greek customs into the Jewish temple. And that process started accelerating about 175 BCE. And this was primarily happening in the metropolitan area of Jerusalem and in the large cities of Judea and Israel, like Hebron. The rural conservative Jews were very upset by these developments. And as they kept accelerating, there was more and more concern about what's happening to our tribe from the rural conservative areas. They finally reached a peak about 175 BCE when a Jew who had basically become a Greek went up to the temple in Jerusalem to do a non-kosher sacrifice and start to do Greek prayers in the Jewish temple. Now, Taos Maccabee and his children were all in the priestly class. They were Kohanim. They knew what was right and what was wrong for traditional tribal Judaism. And they didn't like this change of their customs, this intervention into this culture that they had developed over hundreds and hundreds of years. And they rose up and they killed that converted Jew. And then they rose up, and for the next year, they didn't attack the Greek Seleucids. They attacked those Jews who had joined the Greeks and had adopted Greek ways. And what happened after about 1 year is that the Greek Seleucids saw that they were losing these battles. They didn't expect to be losing. And they really clamped down. They really came down hard on the priests, on the Jews who were fighting those who were adopting Greek ideals. And there were some fairly vicious battles, which they lost, much to their chagrin and surprise. The efforts that the Maccabees were able to reconquer the temple and basically throw out the Greeks was all driven by tribal energy, by that feeling that we're a group, we want to stay with that group. And any other tribe who comes in and tries to change us, tries to make them like them, will be resisted. That tribal fervor really continued to grow, even though after the Greek Seleucids were kicked out and some of the customs were adopted, it really led to some of the Jews finally inviting in the Romans, and the disaster that we know of the Romans conquering Judea and destroying the temple and basically accelerating the diaspora of Jews out of Israel, out of Judea. Now, what lessons can we learn from that? Well, number one, we've learned something about mythology. That as we all think about our groups and think about other groups, we build the mythology around events like this to try and support our own ego, our own self-image, and our own self-worth. And that's part of what a tribe does. Now, how does that relate to Israel and Palestine and the Middle East and what's going on right now? Those of you who have ever read Thomas Friedman's book, From Root to Jerusalem, will understand some of what I'm talking about. The problems in Israel and the Middle East now have to do with tribal conflicts. Virtually all countries in the Middle East are tribes, and you can define some of the conflicts, for instance, Shia versus Sunni, not by differences in religions, but by differences in tribal customs and differences in what lands they feel they possess and what peoples they possess. When we look at Israel, when we look at Palestine, you need to look at this not as a racial conflict, which is actually a concept that was introduced by the Nazis in the 30s to try and turn the Arabs against the Jews and tie up the British so they couldn't fight in World War II. But it's a conflict between the Jewish tribe and the Arab tribe, the descendants of Jacob who wrestled with God and became Israel, and the descendants of Ishmael. And if we get away from Europe stirring up and get back to understanding the tribal needs of people and how to satisfy those without complicating it by external distractions, I think we can eventually reach peace in the Middle East as we've been able to reach peace elsewhere. And peace is not just defined as lack of warfare between peoples, but peace is defined by a person being able to sit there and feel secure and feeling like their life is safe and worthwhile. So please think about these concepts tonight as you hear our other speakers.
To put an end to war.
return to the microphone here and we'll say the blessings together. So please flip your booklets over to page 2. Please join me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu v'hadlik ner shel Chanukah. Amen. Blessed is the source of life, the way of all being, by whose power we hallow the world with the kindling of the Hanukkah lights. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim l'avotenu, v'hayim ha'em uvazman hazeh. Amen. Blessed is the source of life, the way of all being, who performed miracles for our ancestors at this time. Amen. May all people everywhere enjoy peace, health, and happiness. When we light the Hanukkah candles, first we light the one in the center that's on a different level from the others. That one is called the shamas, and then that one does the work of lighting the others. On the first night of Hanukkah, we put the first candle here, and each night we add another candle and brighten the light. As we light the candles, first we start with the newest candle that we added that night and work our way across.
Okay, I think we're about done.
The song is called Peace Prayer by Joanne Gorman, who is one of our own members of the Taos community. She's afraid to come out in the winter because she might slip on the ice. But she wrote this peace prayer in 2015. So this is the 4th time we are singing it. So we ought to all know it by now, right?
May it be
Unitarian Universalists take seriously our progressive values. But a couple of years ago, our National Association president resigned in the aftermath of a higher decision that was widely protested as evidence of systemic racism. After a period of organizational soul-searching, the association's first female president was elected last year. Reverend Susan Frederick Gray recently gave a sermon titled, "This is no time for a casual faith." Reflecting on her experiences in the white nationalist counter-administration in Charlottesville, she said, "I own and want to name how my shock reveals my own white privilege." Then she called for a stronger commitment by all congregations to nurture, quote, "healthy, radically inclusive communities as places of abundant love and deep justice," end quote. As the coming solstice marks the return of light to our hemisphere, my hope for our Taos community is that we all better see each other as family, learning from and celebrating our differences, as well as our shared love for this place. I invite us all to do more as individuals and faith communities to illuminate and address the inequities and iniquities that exist even here. Inspired by the menorah, I suggest we light a virtual candle for those who suffer violence, abuse, or neglect at home, school, workplace, worship, or play. May we hear them, comfort them, help them find safety and healing as we work to amend related laws and institutions. And another candle for those who've lost themselves, their health, their families, to addiction or mental illness. May we see them and provide encouragement and resources to help them find their ways home. And let's light a candle too for non-human beings, abused, neglected, abandoned, and those threatened by climate destruction, trophy hunting, and other causes of human origin. May we encircle them with love and respect they deserve as our kinfolk. And for homeless people, those home alone, and others without resources and support they need, may we help them find shelter, nourishment, and services to warm their bodies and lighten their lives, as we're doing with the food drive tonight. And another, for those innocent of all but seeking a better life, who fear deportation and separation from their families because of their immigration status. May we give them sanctuary and stand for compassionate enforcement of reasonable laws. And one, for those arrested and charged with crimes, may we assure they're treated fairly, legally, without unnecessary violence. And let's even light a candle for political leaders at all levels who compromise their integrity and fail in their responsibilities to justice, compassion, and fair representation. May we support and vote for their opposition. And finally, one for each other, may we be aware when another's light dims, and like the Shamash, share the spark that rekindles the flame within. This is no time for a casual faith.
Assalamu alaikum, peace, shalom. Shalom is a word with so much meaning: love, loyalty, truth, grace, salvation, justice, blessing, righteousness, and peace. Shalom calls forth a vision when all of creation is one, when every creature is in community with the other, living in harmony and joy. Shalom calls forth the biblical vision of love that true Christians strive for. It is good that we of many different faiths and those who claim no faith at all gather together tonight in these troubled times. The political rhetoric would lead one to believe that we should be fearful of each other, that the only way to be safe is more guns, more deportations, more walls, more suspicion, more war, more hate. I think there is another way, and we together can show that way. The way of light, the way of love, the way that we together tonight, in a small way, are creating a new light in the world. Today, the world witnessed the funeral of President George H.W. Bush. President Bush, in his 1988 acceptance speech with his nomination, proclaimed a vision for America of a brilliant diversity spread like stars, like 1,000 points of light in a broad and peaceful sky. A diversity like that is what we are tonight, gathered together. A diversity that as we leave this place, we can spread the light of peace and love wherever we go, whoever we meet. The Jewish festival of light, Hanukkah, 8 days of miraculous light, has brought us together tonight. Jewish and Christian Holy Scripture is filled with hundreds and hundreds of references to light. In the first letter of John from Christian Scripture, we hear God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. And whoever says, I am in the light, while hating a brother or sister, is living in darkness. Whoever loves a brother or sister lives in the light. In the Gospel of Matthew, we hear, you are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under a bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. And I'll close with this quote from St. Francis of Assisi. All the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of one candle. My friends, you and I are single candles. Our individual candlelight combines if we only come together to bring a bright light into the darkness of our world. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Joe Center, for the invite. I wrote a piece about houses of worship. Houses of worship are so important in any society seeking stability. Not only because ancient civilizations and prophets and gurus of the world's most influential religions encouraged building and honoring them, but also because houses of worship are healthy for societies and help build stronger communities. Unfortunately, the phenomenon of acts of violence against houses of worship is something that happens in our modern world. Since the beginning of mankind, there have been houses of worship. In fact, in 6000 BC, temples in ancient Iraq, or what is known as the cradle of civilization, were erected to house the god or goddess of the city. Religion and temples clearly played a great role in people's lives in ancient Egypt, because there are almost 138 pyramids or temples that still exist from 10,000 years ago. Ancient China practiced religion over 7,000 years ago, and the temples that are still around are a testimony to the country's long history and rich culture. The world's oldest Buddhist shrine, discovered in Nepal, goes as far back as the 6th century BC, as well as the temples in many ancient civilizations, like those of the Aztecs, Greeks, Romans, Persians, etc. In the first book of Torah, it is mentioned that God created a home for human beings to inhabit. And in the second book, it is mentioned that human beings created a home for God to inhabit. While wandering across the desert, Moses and his followers would assemble and disassemble the tabernacle as they would go, emphasizing the importance of having a portable earthly dwelling place for God. In Christianity, the Church of Nativity, where Jesus Christ was born, has had its doors open since 300 AD for a total of some 2,000 years. And the holy edifice in Islam, the Kaaba, is believed to have been built by Adam as the first house of worship in humanity, and has been remodeled and taken care of till now. Places of worship were honored throughout history by all civilizations and the world's most influential religions: Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism. For example, if a fugitive in the Germanic kingdom sought refuge in a church, the priests would only give him up to authorities upon the latter's reassurance that the fugitive would not be killed. Under English common law, an offender who sought refuge in a church was given a choice between going to court or leaving the kingdom. Before Islam, the different tribes on the Arabian Peninsula would raid one another year-round, except when they would go to Kaaba for pilgrimage. During this time, there would be a truce. In the modern 21st century, international human law and the Geneva Conventions honor religious buildings and encourage that houses of worship be as protected as Red Cross and Red Crescent. Article 3 of the 1981 UN Assembly states, discrimination between human beings on grounds of religion or belief constitutes an affront to human dignity and a denial of the principles of the Charter of the United Nations, and shall be condemned as a violation of the human rights and fundamental freedoms proclaimed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and as an obstacle to friendly and peaceful relations between nations. Houses of worship, including churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples, help build stronger societies. Indeed, people go to these houses not only for prayer, but also to study, attend ritual observances, receive free meals, obtain free counseling and advice, seek company, have a sense of belonging, listen to spiritual discourses, and participate in community service. It's in these places of worship where people from all walks of life are welcome, and people from all different social status are equal. These are all very constructive qualities that lead to the stability and prosperity of society. To conclude, houses of worship are as old as humanity itself. Ancient civilizations and the world's most influential religions built houses of worship. Organizations like the UN declared houses of worship important for friendship and peace among nations. Even though heavenly religions and man-made laws prohibit harm from being done to people in houses of worship, acts of bigotry and violence have been done to the people in them. Rather than attack these sacred grounds, people should honor them as symbols of richness, harmony, and civility among humanity. Thank you.
So I will begin with a brief story that I have told once before in this, but it seems right to speak of it again. On September 11th, 2001, I'm sure you remember the events of that day, I was still living in New York City, in Manhattan. And therefore, I had the privilege of experiencing something quite remarkable and unforgettable. It seemed as though all of us forgot everything except our humanity. It seemed everybody helped everybody. Our disorientation in the face of the unimaginable looked like love. For days and days, we were dazed and we were kind. We spoke in softer voices. We helped each other. To have experienced this, and I'll never get it. In an article entitled, "How to Welcome the End of the World," by Roshi John Tarrant, he writes, "What is the best response to uncertain and difficult times? Welcome. Welcome." He continues, "We don't need to know how it's going to come out. Not knowing is what emptiness tastes like. It's also what welcome tastes like. We never know what will arrive next. Dreadful events can lead to wonderful events, and the other way around. It's always too early to despair." Welcome means not reaching a verdict on our lives. It is intimate and beautiful not to know. Not to be stronger than our situation. We can feel our way. We can grope along in the velvety dark, and each step will be true. Each step will be ours. Each step will be ours. In the words of Mother Teresa, if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. Thank you.
Chag Sameach, happy holiday. So what's a highly assimilated Ashkenazi guy with a wandering spiritual nature have to contribute to this enlightening event? Well, as Neil introduced us, peaceful resolution of the Hanukkah story conflicts and controversies have been elusive for over 2 millennia. So, tonight I brought a teaching from a Jewish renewal rabbi, Rami Shapiro, who's been an important teacher for me. His recent compilation, quote, title, Wisdom for the Spiritually Independent, led me to a source that I haven't heard shared here at the several Hanukkahs I've attended, the Tao Te Ching. This was attributed to the Chinese sage Lao Tzu from the 6th century CE. I'm calling this message the Way of Peace. Quoting, when the world knows beauty as beauty, ugliness arises. When it knows good as good, evil arises. Thus, being and not being produce each other. Difficult and easy about each other. High and low serve each other. Music and voice harmonize each other. Front and back follow each other. Therefore, the sages manage the work of detached actions, conduct the teaching of no words. They work with myriad things, but do not control. They create, but do not possess. They act, but do not presume. They succeed, but do not dwell on success. It is because they do not dwell on success that it never goes away.
So often in the Buddhist tradition, the way that we touch peace is through silence. And so what I'd like to do is just spend a little bit of time guiding you into a little silence, and then I'll share with you a poem by the beloved Pablo Neruda. So if you feel like you'd like to join, I suggest that you take a good deep breath all the way in and all the way out. And let your body and mind settle just a little bit. If you like, you can close your eyes or let them soften. And just see if you can touch the place in yourself which is in fact the home of the sacred. That's right inside of us. It's not anything really special, and yet it's the most sacred. It's a possibility for making space, welcoming whatever is occurring. The beautiful, the not so beautiful. There's room for all of it. And let that process process of your body breathing keep you in tune, so that as we breathe in, and we know that we're breathing in, we can know a kind of stillness. And as we breathe out, and we know that we're breathing out, we can know a kind of stillness. And now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. For once, on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now, I'll count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go.
Tonight we pray together with our Jewish brothers and sisters during Hanukkah. In the context of today's fragmented world, a gathering like this is rare, where Jews, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, Taos and others come together to address and pray for peace and goodwill for each other and the world at large. We affirm tonight Israel's unique place in the sacred history of many of our traditions. And we gather in love and respect for each other and our different religious pathways. As people of faith, we have more in common than that which divides us, and we realize our differences enrich our human community. My name is Jim Gilroy, and I represent tonight the Interfaith and Ecumenical Commission of the Catholic Community of the Archdiocese of Santa Fe. This commission works together with all faith communities throughout New Mexico to come to better mutual understanding, as well as provide critical service to the needy of our state. A little over a month ago, Father Mike invited me to a meeting of Taos Coalition to End Homelessness. I was deeply struck by the commitment of people like Irene, Catherine, Ethan, Rachel, and Kim, who served the efforts of CAV, the Men's Shelter, the Heart Center for Women, and Dream Tree, and learned that during the day, the Taos Public Library and the Family Center do what they can to accommodate the homeless. Homelessness is a real issue in our community. The Community Against Violence has served 350 survivors of domestic violence last year, including over 150 children. Dream Tree Project served 152 individuals, including 109 unaccompanied youth under the age of 18. The Heart Center serves 200 women each month, of which somewhere between 60 to 90% experience some form of homelessness. The Taos Men's Shelter serves over 250 men each year, including many veterans and many from our own community. We know of at least 12 men and women that have died due to the experience of homelessness over the last year alone. In our community here, we have gaps in our services. All shelter beds are regularly full, and there is no place for men and women and families to be during winter days that is safe and warm. The most basic need is for space to shelter more people. And tonight we ask your help to let our local officials know that this need is real and urgent, and that we need to affect the moral will of the community leaders. Here's what we can do. Tell the town council and community leaders that they need to act to provide space for shelter and housing in Taos. What can we do personally? Cook a dinner or breakfast for the men's shelter? Donate any of these agencies either money or items they need, or contact an agency to volunteer. Give your time, talent, pressure, and tone, or voice to this cause. Tonight we have, and I'd like them to stand up, Catherine from Dream Tree, as well as Ethan of the Men's Shelter, here to meet with you after this meeting. In closing, to inspire us, the book of Exodus says, "You shall not wrong a stranger or oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not afflict any widow or orphan, for I will surely hear their cry." Isaiah says, "Learn to do good and seek justice. Defend the orphans and plead for the widow. Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover him? Then shall your light break forth like the dawn." In Matthew, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink, and a stranger and welcome you? Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of these, the least of these, you did it to me." Many homeless of our community find themselves in the dark and cold this evening. To them, we need to bring the light that breaks forth like the dawn. Please, after the session, just visit with Catherine and Nathan, and they have more information to share with you to help us with this. Thank you.
Education has been my life, and I still continue. And because of that, children, and you still are all somebody's child. My prayers, I pray for children, those who put chocolate fingers everywhere, who like to be tickled, who stomp in muddy puddles and ruin their new pants, who sneak popsicles before supper, who erase holes in their math workbooks, who can never find their shoes. I pray for children who who stare at photographers from behind barbed wire, who can't run down the street in brand new pairs of sneakers, who never counted potatoes, who are born in places we wouldn't be caught dead in, who never go to the circus, who live in X-rated worlds. I pray for children who bring us sticky kisses and fistful of dandelions, who sleep with the dog and bury the goldfish, who hug in a hurry and forget their lunch money, who cover themselves with Band-Aids and sings off-key, who squeeze toothpaste all over the sink and slurp their soup. I pray for children who never get dessert, who have no soft blankets to drag behind them, who watch their parents watch them die, who can't find any bread to steal, who don't have rooms to clean up, whose pictures are not on anyone's dressers, whose monsters are real. I pray for children who spend all their allowance by Tuesday, who throw temper tantrums in the grocery stores and pick at their food, who like ghost stories, who shove dirty laundry under their bed and never rinse out the bathtub, who get visits from tooth fairies, who don't like to be kissed in front of the carpool, who squirm in church and scream on the phone, whose tears we sometimes laugh at, and whose smiles can make us cry. I pray for children whose nightmares come in the daytime, who will eat anything, who have never seen a dentist, who aren't spoiled by anybody, who go to bed hungry and cry themselves to sleep, who live and move but have no being. I pray for children who want to be carried, and for those who must, for those we never give up on, and for those who don't get a second chance, for those we smother, and for those who will grab the hand of anybody kind enough to offer it. Help me to pray, for we all have a responsibility for our children. They are our future. The Great Spirit with his own hands painted the mesas, painted the sands. The mountains rose at his command, and he called it his own land. So he called it his own land. And then he brought the wind, and it did blow. The highest parts he covered with snow. The sun shone down on his country so he called it his own land. When the day is dawning and the night is falling, you can hear him calling once again. Then he made the people strong and free. He made them straight as a cedar culture, the corn is the most blessed thing. And hopefully, even if it's a mess, somebody will take care of it.
Con pie with Pama, the ain with Powai, net Owarin, saying they no Powai. Call it on Yan, Tarain, now we become. We really got non seafood. Yeah. No wedding day, not the piano, the taran, Indian, Sayan, the San, or the home, the Kilo, Campari, people will become a North Camp, met over the moon around the port. You can now become put that over, fight to go, put that over.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you for everyone who came. Please, everyone, stand up and let's all sing together. This is a Peter, Paul, and Mary song, Light One Candle.
Closer. Closer. Song in our heart. Bow